Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into the Amazic podcast this week. I'm Twain Taylor, editor at Amazic, and each week I chat with different co-founders and innovators in the space of cloud-native Kubernetes, developer tools, data tools. And so I'm excited to bring all of this stuff to you each week. And if you like what you hear, head over to our website, amazic.com. That's amazic.com, where you'll find a whole bunch of these kind of conversations that we've been doing over the past couple of years. Today, I have with me Preeti Shrimal, who is the founder and CEO at Chaos Genius. And Chaos Genius works in a space that we've not touched on in this podcast series, which is data ops, particularly running on Snowflake and Databricks. So that's our focus for today. And I'm quite excited to get started talking to Preeti. Preeti, welcome. It's great to have you with us. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm so excited because two reasons. One, we've not talked about this topic of data ops on the podcast, so I wanted to get to know that. And secondly, just great to see a woman co-founder, woman founder, innovator in tech to make it on the podcast. And yeah, really excited about those things.
Likewise, I'm very excited about our conversation.
All right. So to get us started, Preeti, if you could tell us a bit about yourself and what you've been up to that led you to the founding of Chaos Genius, that'll be a great note to start on.
Yeah. So I'll just share a little bit about Chaos Genius and what Chaos Genius does, and then maybe share the background. So Chaos Genius is a data FinOps platform. So we work with Fortune 500 customers around the world to help them manage their cost on platforms like Snowflake and Databricks, and in turn deliver data and AI ROI. A quick background on myself. I grew up in India. I graduated from IIT Delhi. Post that, I started my career as a management consultant with Bain and Company. So the career started with using a lot of data to drive insights and working with Fortune 500 customers globally to help them, make better business decisions and drive business outcomes.
Mhm.
Post that, I decided to study business. So I got my MBA from Harvard. I was in the US, where I, got exposed to the world of internet startups. My, years in management consulting were more focused on traditional businesses, right? So that was a good change. Post which I sort of like pivoted, and I was actually very intrigued and excited at the idea of learning how to build software products from scratch. So the next 5, 6 years after my MBA, I built products at different startups, from 0 to 1 to unicorns, and seen the entire journey. However, I'm also a business person at heart. So after seeing the product journey, there's always the itch to kind of see what's the larger business opportunity, and not just build products but build businesses. And that's
Mhm.
where I ventured into my entrepreneurial journey and
Mhm.
started Chaos Genius in 2021.
Right in
So
the
it's,
middle of the pandemic.
yeah.
What was the moment though? Was it lockdown and you were going crazy at home and had all of these ideas, and then suddenly this one came through and you said,
Yeah.
let's do this? What happened?
So, I mean, it was always like I've always wanted to. I knew that I would be starting my own business at some point, and as I said, like I'd gone through the product journey, and I've seen product, in different life cycles, and I think at the back of the mind there are always obviously different ideas that are going on, and you're absorbing so much from the ecosystem. And if you look at my career path, right, like it's always been using data to drive either business decisions or product decisions, etc. So there was this moment of insight where I realized that the way businesses are using data is still the same as I was when I started my career in 2009, and we were in 2020, right? And it's still companies are still using Tableau dashboards, for example, or simple charts. Tableau is a 20-year-old company, if not more. And now there's very little use of technology which is being done to kind of automate a lot of the gap between charts and visualizations and decisions. So Chaos Genius was actually started out more to solve that problem and bridge the gap between data and decisions. We started out as an open source tool, and for lack of a better word, we called it business observability. So our idea was that we'll build this tool using machine learning. Now this is the pre-LLM era, so these models are going to augment how business analysis was done, how business intelligence was being performed, and these models would basically monitor all the important business KPIs and be able to, detect any kind of anomalies, come up with the reasoning why these KPIs were changing and what needs to be done. So that was the original, product with which we started. As it was open source, it got, traction in over 30 countries, and this is all pandemic, so it was all very exciting. Our entire team was also built remotely, and different data teams were using this open source tool in different ways. Somebody was monitoring their marketing KPIs, somebody was monitoring their website signups, somebody was monitoring their gaming revenue. So there were different use cases, and that was very exciting. But it's also, we realized that the it's difficult to build such an all encompassing product which solves for every business use case. So we started studying these use cases much more deeply. And one of the use cases that caught our attention, because we were working closely with data teams, was that data teams started using our open source tool to put all kind of alerts on their data operations. Right, like, so alert me which of my queries are running long. If somebody is firing a query which has taken more than $50, shoot me an alert, shoot them an alert. So we realized that while data landscape was exploding and it had so many solutions already, there was still a white space, because of which people were kind of twisting our product to a use case which we did not envisage when we were starting. And that got us very excited, and we didn't know what to call it. We called it multiple names. We called it data ops observability. We picked Snowflake, so we started calling it Snowflake observability. And then over a period of last couple of years, we have matured, and we now call this entire a piece of work data FinOps. So that's a quick kind of like a journey into how we zeroed in on this problem.
Fascinating. Wow. So yeah, it's quite a great example of how the market leads the product and
Yeah.
tells you which direction to go in. That's a great note for those who want to be entrepreneurs and are thinking about ideas and products. Wow, great story there. How's the open source software doing? Is it still active, maintained? Is it still popular?
So we kind of like, so we are a startup, so we could not like do both things at the same time. So we did, when we pivoted to the closed source model, we knew we had to develop it much faster. So we continued to support it for some time, but now we kind of like, it's still there for use, but we don't actively manage it. The other thing that happened is the LLMs came into picture. So we are still very passionate about the product, and we'll see at some point. How do we redo and go back to that mission of being able to use data to drive data ROI. So ROI is two parts, right? One is using the data more if you cost effectively, but it's also about driving outcomes. So that part of the puzzle at some point in our journey will pick up, and now with much powerful technology, we'll be able to make something more relevant for today's landscape.
Got it. Got it. So you mentioned you work closely with data teams. And I want to dig in a bit there and ask, what are these data teams? Who are the actual people? What roles are they in? What are their priorities? What are their challenges? What are the kind of people that you speak to on a daily basis on your customer side?
Yeah, yeah. So, data teams are, always, so it's fairly complex data operations, right? Like when you look at the entire engineering org, then sure, like you can talk about data teams as one unit. But if you double click on it and see the entire data operations, it's fairly complex. It starts with identifying all the sources of data in the organization, now storing them in raw format. Then there's this entire operation of bringing them in a centralized, data warehouse or data lake or data cloud, whatever you call it. running those pipelines daily, making sure all that data is coming, and then that data is reliable. So the data quality is in place. Once there is a reliable data in the centralized data cloud, then you have to kind of make it readily, usable for different kind of analytics. So that's comes in the place of analytics engineering. Then within analytics also there are different use cases. There's the business intelligence, there's data science, and now AI. So it's fairly complex, all of these moving pieces, right? So and then there are different roles. So I'll cover some of the most important rules. The number one is data engineering. So data engineering is the team responsible for, identifying all the data sources, establishing, orchestrating these pipelines, and making sure these pipelines are running correctly, right? That's the central, I would say, the most important part of the data team. Followed by, now once these pipelines are running correctly, then there's the analytics team, which is basically going to be using that data, right? Like, so these are people, and within analytics, as I said, there are different roles. There are the business and data analysts who are using these for business intelligence. There are the data scientists who are building different data science models and applications, and running, machine learning models on these. So that's the data science team. And now is the AI engineering team. So that is on the analytics side. And then there's the groundwork of keep making sure this data is correct. So that's the entire data stewards, managing data quality, governance, etc. And then making sure this data is secure. So that's the entire data security team, right? Like, so those are, I would say, the building blocks. And then there's the larger data architect who's kind of like deciding what are the right pieces of architecture and infrastructure to kind of, put together the entire show.
Quite a few roles there. Do you see AI teams becoming separate within the data team, the broader data team? Do you see separate AI teams being formed, AI data teams?
So we are seeing more in growth of the data teams to now data and AI teams together.
Okay.
So of course, as I said, there are different roles. So the AI engineers, they bring different skill sets, but they are still a part of like the larger data and analytics team, which is now becoming data and AI team.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm curious to know about AI and its impact on data teams and their day-to-day workflows. Actually, maybe you could talk about that now. Any observations that you made or any changes you noticed with the advent of AI and ML on data teams and their day-to-day routines?
Absolutely, right. Like, so as I said, like AI is not a separate thing. It's an evolution of the data team into data and AI teams. And a lot of, if you look at the last decade, right, like a lot of the work that data teams have been doing is migrating all the data and analytics workloads from the legacy warehouses or the on-prem systems to these data clouds, which we are going to talk about, Snowflake and Databricks, right? Now, these data clouds, along with, of course, the hyperscalers, are at the forefront of making sure that enterprises are, prepared to build their AI roadmaps. So a lot of these workloads are going to run on Snowflake, are going to run on Databricks. So these are the same platforms where, enterprises are now going deeper on AI. And what we are so data teams are at the heart of this entire transformation which is happening. Having said that, the we mostly work with Fortune 500s, Global 2000s, and that is where the adoption is still, I would say, in the pilot phase. Companies
Okay.
are identifying all the use cases where AI can fundamentally transform their business. And
Mhm.
a lot of these use cases are then being prioritized and put in different pilots to see whether it can be moved to productions. Some of the areas are slightly easier to start on, like customer service. Some of the areas which are the hardcore data areas are much more difficult. So
Mhm.
it's an evolution, but yeah, it's definitely starting to gather steam now.
Interesting. So yeah, Snowflake and Databricks, why these two platforms? How did you gravitate towards it? You kind of hinted at it that that's where the market led you. But tell
Yeah.
us a bit more about the unique quirks and challenges when it comes to Snowflake and Databricks.
Yeah. So as you said, right, like that's where the market led us. That market led us to these data clouds, and why we started first with Snowflake, and the reason being that over the last decade, the Snowflake is kind of like the pioneering company which led this shift to data clouds, right? And if we were to just step back and look at the numbers, the last I remember, and they publish this number every quarter, the last I remember is 700 out of the global 2000s are already using Snowflake.
Yeah.
More than 500 of them are already spending $1 million on Snowflake, right? So that's where,
Mm.
if you just very, simply use the numbers to see where the highest problem is, we saw that that's the highest exposure. Then if you look at Databricks, which is a private company, but they also share a bunch of then, financials and numbers. And so it's very similar,
Mm.
the entire exposure of Databricks in these companies. So if you look at it, the for Forbes 2000, there's good amount of coverage between Snowflake and Databricks as the platform. So that's why we
Mhm.
decided to start with Snowflake or go to Databricks. We always knew that it's not just one point solution, it's a much more complex ecosystem. So there's still the legacy systems are also there as a part of the data infrastructure, which we'll go. And now there are still like new solutions which are coming. So Microsoft Fabric is now starting to enter into the picture, and we are seeing enterprises now, also are piloting with that and seeing how to use all of these platforms together for their different strengths. So it's an evolving landscape, and we just kind of like happen to start with Snowflake and then expand accordingly.
Okay, interesting. Wow. Yeah, so for someone like me who doesn't know all that Snowflake does, I know they do something with data. How would
Yeah.
you explain it? What does Snowflake and Databricks do with data? Some of the key things that they're known for within the data teams and used for, and how do they differ from these legacy data tools, and also even Fabric that you
Yeah.
mentioned, like Fabric? How is that different from what Snowflake and Databricks already does? Just some
Yeah.
context around this. I'm
Yeah.
really curious,
Yeah. So to be honest, like, my honest assessment is that, they are all converging and they are more similar than they are different if you look today. However, the way they started, it was very different, right? So as I said, these are data clouds. So these are fundamentally different than the previous generation of data warehouses, which were all on-prem, right? So it's first started with Snowflake. Snowflake was founded in 2012, and it was basically, the key innovation that they did was they enabled storage and compute to scale independently. So this very different technology than, let's say, even Amazon Redshift, right, which was kind of like a cloud data warehouse. So that really differentiated and made the entire data warehousing on cloud really scalable, adoptable, cheaper, all of those things, right? Now, so Snowflake started very focused as a SQL data warehousing solution on cloud. Um, Databricks, on the other hand, started more as a managed service for Apache Spark, so was more focused on enabling data science teams to run their ML workloads, right? So Databricks entire, I would say, Genesis is more on the data science ML side of things. Snowflake is more on the SQL BI side of things. However, if you follow how these platforms, and they are very rapidly evolving every year, if you go to their summits and how fast they're shipping features, so they're all aiming to be the end-to-end data platform, the entire data ops that we talked about. So they started as like the central data cloud and now are trying to cover all parts of the data operations lifecycle, right? So Snowflake is now going deeper on enabling ML and AI workloads because they already have a very strong hold on SQL warehousing. Databricks, on the other side, started more, heavily on ML, is now actually over the last couple of years, last few years have started and going very deep on the Databricks SQL side, which is eerily similar to what Snowflake offers, right? So they're all converging to an end-to-end data platform. And Microsoft Fabric, in my opinion, is also something similar, right? Like they already have the Azure backing and the platform, and they are kind of like now bringing together all of the pieces of the Azure cloud with the data capabilities on top, known as Microsoft Fabric. So it's like asking how is AWS, GCP, and Azure different. So I think these platforms are all going to be their data equivalents. So hence the data clouds, and they'll all emerge to be end-to-end data platforms for teams.
Okay, okay. All right, interesting. Great. Yeah, that's a good overview of the whole space. So tell us about Kiosk Genius, what it does, and built on top of these data warehouses in the cloud, what advantages does it offer that these data clouds don't already offer?
Yeah. Yeah. So we are as I said, we are a data FinOps solution. So data we have talked about. Let me talk a little bit about FinOps, right? Like so, once this things start moving to cloud, these are all usage-based platforms. They scale very fast, and the outcome, their performance is rarely a challenge because you can always buy better machines, more powerful machines. The problem here with cloud is always the bills, right? Because they are more expensive. So the same problem was when the world moved to the hyperscaler clouds, which is AWS, GCP, Azure, right? Cloud cost became a very large problem. It's still a very large problem. And there emerged a field called Cloud FinOps, which was focused on
Mhm.
helping companies manage their cloud cost. Now, over the last decade, we are seeing the similar shift of happening for the data workloads to move to data clouds, right? And now we are
Mhm.
seeing the similar pain points emerge that everything is now everything data is now moving to clouds, and the data costs are exploding with very similar patterns. And that is where we are pioneering the category of data FinOps. So just like there was cloud FinOps, we do data FinOps.
Mhm.
Now, what does FinOps mean? FinOps basically means that we give you a visibility into where your spend is happening. So now imagine a company like Fortune 50 company with like 10,000 users using either of these platforms, right? Like so their bills will be running into tens of millions. So
Mhm.
number one is like, and when you run operations at that scale, the native dashboard that comes with, the tool is not enough. You need much more visibility into how different teams are using this platform, what use cases, what teams are actually driving up the costs.
Mhm.
Things like forecasting, where will you end like at the end of the month, and then not just that, really. Once you know that your costs are increasing, why it's increasing, how to actually reduce it. So that is the intelligence behind, the knowledge and the behind these platforms on what is going wrong when you scale up these operations. There are by default inefficiencies that creep in, right? Like so, what Chaos Genius does is automates a lot of that, because every team, once the costs start like hitting them, they'll put a bunch of resources, and they will try and solve this problem themselves. They'll put up their
Mhm.
own dashboards, and they'll do the root cause analysis, and just do it in a very manual fashion. And that's where we kind of automate everything. We connect to these platforms, we pull the metadata, we know exactly why your costs are increasing, and then we have developed subject matter expertise on these platforms, where our product has the intelligence to tell you that like this is how you can optimize and save 10% here, 15% there. And the results are phenomenal. We are seeing anywhere from 15 to 30% cost reduction within a matter of months on these
Mhm.
platforms, right? Like so it's more of automating and bringing in that intelligence as companies are scaling their workloads.
All right, all right. Wow, really interesting. So yeah, that is the overview of, you mentioned how, your Chaos Genius helps to make things more efficient, more customized, more powerful beyond what these data platforms give you.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that in action. Do you have, a tour of the product and some of the key features to show to us today?
Absolutely, absolutely. So let me probably share my screen, and we can have a look at it. Uh, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So I'll just give a quick, the product is fairly deep. So I'll just give a quick overview of the different features and the mental model that we have developed and solidified over the years, to how to go about the tough problem of data cost optimization.
Mhm.
So it first, as I said, starts with enterprise spend observability. So the way when enterprises are spending millions of dollars, they need much more than a basic dashboard to understand why the costs, where the costs are going, why are they increasing, how different teams are using, so all of those features. So that's where we, come in. Enterprises use multiple accounts. They don't use one account. So they need to know an organization-wide view, connect multiple accounts and see all of the spend. And this is not just connect multiple Snowflake accounts. Now enterprises want to connect all of their data accounts. So like this is my spend on Databricks, this is my spend on Snowflake, and so it's a much larger problem when you get to this Fortune 50, 500 scale. So the ability to connect different platforms, and within different platforms connect different accounts and see a unified view. So that is number one, right? So the other thing is, as I said, forecasting, bringing in more intelligence. If we have so much data, then why are we not able to extract more intelligence? So automating a lot of that. Then, as I said, when so many these conglomerates have different business units, have different teams and different use cases. So they want to be able to track down not just by that these warehouses or these clusters are driving my cost. It's like which teams are driving my cost, right? Like, so that is what these tools like Chaos Genius enable to those functionalities around reporting and chargeback, showback. So that is what we call the enterprise spend observability, which is much, much more powerful than what a native dashboard would offer. So that's the first part of the product. Then we get into the heart of the product, which is the optimization. Now, sure, we know the costs are increasing, why they are increasing, the discovery is there. Now, how do we optimize this? The way we have thought about cost optimization is that we break it down into two parts. One is compute optimization and the storage optimization. Now, compute, again, we break it into two parts, right? Your compute costs are high, because you're using machines which are much more powerful than, let's say, the use case that you have. So you're using the machines very inefficiently, so you need to tune them, right? So these machines are called warehouses or clusters, right, in different platforms. So tuning the machines, right? Now you could still have finely tuned machines but still write very bad code, right? Like you can still fire select stars on your databases and scan entire tables, right? Like, so that is also very that is also bad practice, which leads to a lot of unnecessary compute usage. So that second part, one is like the instance tuning, the second part is the workload optimization. So between both of them, we basically optimize the compute expense. Then is the storage expense. Storage is like all the data that you're bringing in, so we'll get to this. But between compute and storage, optimization is the heart of the product, where we see anywhere, as I said, 15 to 30% cost reduction, right? So I'll now start with like the instance optimization, which is what we call warehouse tuning or cluster tuning. Number one thing is utilization, right? Like these warehouses are running. So these platforms charge you on the number of hours you are using the machines. But just because the machine is on doesn't mean that you're running a workload on it, right? Because these machines, you can turn it on and their auto suspension or turn off times are very variable. So there's a high chances that, that the machines are just running empty. And that is what we call idle credits or poor utilization. So we basically bring in that visibility to customers that, what percentage of the credits or the DBUs that you're paying are actually going on idle time for your machines. And what does it mean in terms of dollar numbers, right? Like, so bringing in that visibility is what we call, first is utilization of the machines, then is tuning recommendations. So how do you go about tuning them? So these, machines have a lot of configurations when you're setting them up. It's not just the size. There is different things like scalings and clustering and the multiple features that could be on top of them. So we have our AI-driven recommendation engine, which kind of monitors any number of warehouses, right? Like it could be thousands of clusters, thousands of warehouses. They monitor and automatically, find out what are the warehouses which are running with the health. We assign the health score. We tell you these are the most least efficient warehouses and how you can go about fixing them. So that is in a nutshell what we do on the instance right sizing. Once your instance, I'll just take a pause. Any questions? Are you with me so far?
Yeah, no, I was keeping my questions till you finish, but yeah, good that you asked now. One question that was coming to my mind is, I was wondering if you actually touch any of the the resources within the data platform and make any changes based on these recommendations, like from your platform itself? Can a user like click a button and say, remove this or change that configuration? Or do you give purely monitoring data and then the steps to follow and they can just go
Yeah.
and make those changes?
Yeah.
What do you?
Yeah, right now the tool does not automatically tinker around with the systems. There are two reasons for it. One is that it requires much higher permissions for the tool, and we right now only operate on metadata with read-only permissions, so it's a very secure way to build the tool. So
Yeah.
it's like just like much higher recommendation, but the more important reason is that when you're operating in such large environments, right? Like there's also a resistance, and there's also a way in which these large organizations have set up their infrastructure. So everything, you imagine when 10,000 people are using it, and there could be like 500 clusters to bring so many people on board that we are doing this change, and now suddenly your warehouses are going to be downsizing, upsizing all at the same time. It's a great product, but again, it's on ground implementation is much more challenging than
Mhm.
that. So those are some of the limitations. Having said that, what we are now getting into is, as you rightly said, not just manual tuning, but dynamically tuning the warehouses. So that's obviously the evolution of the roadmap, is to get to what we call self-healing systems or optimized instances. So that's a part of the roadmap evolution.
Interesting. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's really cool, because I think that would be a challenge
Yeah,
from the recommendations to actually implementing it. That's
yeah,
where the value is. That bridge is where the value is, and I think, like you're saying, eventually probably that gap is going to be closed.
yeah,
Uh, Quite
absolutely.
interesting.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So you're going to continue?
Yeah, so as I said, like, so first part was right sizing and tuning the instances. Then we get into workload optimization. Now workloads also are varied. We started with Snowflake. So if we first started with SQL optimization, as we are now going deeper on the Spark side, so we are also expanding to Spark optimization, etc. Right? Now what we'll cover here is like what SQL tuning looks like. Now SQL tuning has traditionally been done very manually. It's a very difficult and a rigorous process, and especially when you're running hundreds and millions of queries, right? Like first figuring out which queries to tune itself is a big problem in organizations, right? So what we've developed, again, like, it's common knowledge, but again, productizing it. Number one thing to optimize cost is to identify your failing workloads and to kind of fix them, because that's complete wasted compute. You're running these queries, they are all failing, and you're still not getting the results. So we, number one, it's the lowest hanging fruit. We help you identify the workloads which are failing, what is the cost impact of that, and why they are failing, right? Like, so that's number one. Number two, what we do is we help you identify your most expensive workloads. As I said, how do you go about finding which workloads to go after when you're running hundreds of millions of queries every month, right? So the tool does cost attribution, does grouping, does a lot of things where we are saying that, you have to focus on these 15 workloads every month. And then we double click on these workloads, and then we give recommendations. So the tool will study the query plans. It will tell you that, this workload is taking probably like 10 hours to run. This is the step it's taking most of its time in this joint, and and then you can probably use some ways to rewrite the query so that the performance of the query is much faster. So we go very detailed into then these selective workloads every month to help companies optimize their compute spend. So between these two is where majority of the compute happens. And then last leg is the storage optimization. So these platforms, and as I said, all the raw data is being brought to a central data store, data warehouse, data lake, right? Like, so there's a lot of data that companies are bringing, but they are not aware whether that data is being used or not, right? And you're still incurring high storage cost on that. So the tool identifies, because we are analyzing all the workloads, which we know which tables are being accessed and which we know which tables are not being accessed. So for helping you identify all that unused data which is lying there, and again, giving the cost impact of that, going deeper into all of these list of unused tables, all of those things, right? So between this is where both the compute and storage optimization comes in. And last but not the least is that there are, when you're running cloud systems, there are things which can go wrong. There could be workloads which are running for days and you're not aware, so you need an observability, you need alerting mechanisms, you need guardrails in place. Now either teams can do it manually, asset by asset, and do it themselves. Again, what we do is we automate all of that. Once you start using Chaos Genius, it just is automatically monitoring all of your system, all of your users, warehouses, clusters for any kind of spikes, anomaly detection, all of those things, right? And you get these beautiful reports straight in your Teams or Slack channel. It'll tell you what kind of failures are happening, what kind of spikes are happening, anything that needs your attention. And it's already there in front of you, and you can triage it before it snowballs into a large bill at the end of the month, right? So that is where the
Mhm.
observability part of it comes in.
Got it. What's a use case where one of your customers has built a custom alert for something that you didn't think of, but it's actually makes a big difference to them? Any use case that you could give for a custom alert?
Yeah. So the custom alert was it's very and we have not built it yet. We've been asked to build it. Is like there's the FinOps and then there's the larger administration piece of it. So like Snowflake, for example, is in so many regions, and when regions go down or there is a Snowflake outage, they need to immediately know, right, and then send the alert to the respective teams within the company. So that was a use case that we did not imagine, but the customers came and asked, like, can you also give us an alert not just for the FinOps side of things, but for the platform uptime and some of the other related use cases, which is, let's say, user login is failing, so it's starting to get a little bit on the security side and all of those things. So that is something that we didn't start with because we were very focused on cost, but now it's getting slightly into some of the other use cases as well.
Okay, excellent. Wow, that's a great example. All right, and what's the approximate range of savings in terms of cost and resources when your customers start using Chaos Genius?
Yeah, yeah. We see anywhere from 15 to 30% cost reduction, so it's fairly high. Obviously, it depends. It varies from system to system. It depends on how the companies have scaled their systems, how how actively they are implementing some of the recommendations that we are giving. So all of those things. But yeah, 15 to 30% is a fair estimate.
And I think beyond cost, what happens when you do that exercise is it probably reduces clutter
Yeah.
and frees your team up to do more high value stuff rather than just manage bigger data warehouses where they're spreading their efforts thin, don't you think?
Absolutely, absolutely, right. It's one of our customers very nicely put it. It's a Fortune 500 manufacturing giant, and I was speaking with the CDO there, who's our sponsor, and he said, cost is definitely the outcome, right? But the larger place where this tool forms a part of the strategy is that they are going through this entire data democratization, decentralization exercise, right? And now what has happened is that while that has happened, there is no central visibility and control and governance on how these operations, the decentralized operations, are taking place, right? So it's bringing in that responsibility and cultural change within the organization, where there's sure this data decentralization and democratization and everything, but there's also like a central guardrails in place on how to be fiscally responsible about this, right? Like, so that's the larger, I would say, strategic placement of the tool.
All right. Wow, really interesting.
Yeah.
As we wind down, Preeti, I wanted to just ask about, women in tech is something that is on a lot of people's minds, and, you being someone on the front lines leading an organization, starting up. What would be your advice to someone listening to this who's interested in that topic? Maybe they're a woman themselves and they work in tech and they're trying to figure out how they can best use their skills and how their direction for themselves, or even the men who are listening to this who are passionate about and have that on their mind and think, if there's a way I could help or enable women in this space, what would be your advice or uh, your observations from being in the space to those listeners and viewers?
Yeah, I think my advice to entrepreneurs is always the same, is to always fall in love with the problem and and solve for it. Um, so not be deterred by, let's say, that there are so few women in deep tech, and whether I should do it, not do it. If you're passionate about the problem, just go and solve for it. I can share from my example, all of our competitors are completely male only founding teams, and that does not really impact us much, because when we go to our customers, when we compete, all that matters is how good the product is, what is our hold on the on the space, what is our vision, and how deeply we collaborate with customers to understand their problems and solve and co-create value. So being a man or a woman never really comes into any of these conversations at all. That's been my
Mhm.
experience, and that would be my advice to all men, women, is to
Mhm.
focus on the problem and just go for it. Don't overthink about the larger pieces, which anyway you have very little control over. So yeah.
All right. So fall in love with what you're doing, and
Yeah.
that will get you there. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Um, yeah, last question for you, Preeti, before you head off is, what would be your alternate career path if not for your job in tech?
Yeah, I mean, within my career path also, I've done many things, but if I were to think of it outside of tech, it's not a very straightforward answer. I'm honestly not done very deep thinking on it. But I often wonder, and if I look back at my college years, one of the things I really was very passionate about was I was involved in the production of a lot of theater and performing arts works. And that is something that really was very different, and it brings a lot of joy. I don't know, at some point in my life going forward, I'll go back and do that, but that could be something that could be very interesting.
All right. Well, tell us the play or the role you played in the play.
Yeah, so this was the last one which was there was while I was at Harvard, so it was called the HBS show. So it's kind of like
Mhm.
Follies, and I was the producer, so I was donning the production hat, and the show runs for 4 days, and so you have to
Wow.
basically be involved in the entire production, right from, like, the script to the casting, to making sure all the things are there, the stage, all the lighting, making sure you have the right sponsors, you're enabling the sales of the tickets, the show is running full all 4 nights, the cast is getting enough food. So I think all of that, like the back, there's the stage, and then there's the operations at the back of the stage. So I really love, like, so that was the role I was playing, basically managing all the show in the background.
Very cool. All right. All right. You,
Yeah.
so you didn't get on stage and play a role itself, but yeah,
No.
you're doing everything else.
Yeah. More on the production side. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. That was great. It was wonderful talking with you, Preeti. Thanks for dropping by. And yeah, wish you the best with Chaos Genius and all the adventures you guys are on.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dwayne. It was lovely speaking with you.
Thanks to all of our listeners and viewers for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this conversation with Preeti around Data FinOps. And we hope you'll join again for the next episode, and we'll see you on that one.